Well, hi there, everyone. I'm the Nature Guy, and I am up here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in kind of a spruce and fir forest because today I want to talk to you about the spruce grouse. Now, the spruce grouse is found in a lot of Canada, all the way from the Alaska border, all through the boreal forests, all the way out to the east coast in the far north. But a little population of those birds can be found in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But they're hard to find because they're very camouflaged. You see, the male is gray with a lot of black, especially in the front. And they like to eat the buds and needles of these fir and spruce trees, and on occasion jack pine if they need to. So they're in these shaded, thick forests, and so being a black and gray bird is excellent camouflage. Now, sometimes you see them out on the roadway on an old forest road, and they really stand out, but they're there for a reason. We'll get to that in a moment. Now, the females, they're a mottled brown because they nest on the ground. They do all the incubating, so they need to be very camouflaged. And the females and the young ones you'll usually find out in more of an open spruce bog where it's there's more ground cover and stuff to hide the little ones, and also in the summer they eat berries. But in the rest of the year, when there aren't berries, it's spruce buds and needles. It doesn't sound like a very appetizing meal, but it works really well for the spruce grouse. Now, during most of the year, they are solitary, which means they live alone. So you'll only see one, and then maybe another one in another place. But in the spring, they gather for the mating rituals of the male to choose mates and to start families. They also do that a little bit in the fall, and it's not clear why the male should be doing the displays and so forth, and all the females gather around to watch. But they do that in the fall, and I got to see that this year up in here in the Upper Peninsula. And in fact, we saw 16 altogether in one spot, which is crazy because usually you just see one or two. I think the most I'd ever seen before this was 6. So seeing 16 was amazing. But in the fall, it seems that the dominant males are sort of keeping track of who's who for next spring. But also all the young ones have now grown up. So the young males don't have as much black and gray. They're kind of mottled. It seems like the adult, the main ones that are in charge, the adult males, the king of the group, that they tend to display and just sort of showing everybody their place, that come next spring, I'm the boss, is what they're trying to say, I think. So when the spruce grouse is putting on his show for all the females that are watching, he tends to like to be out in an open spot, like an old forest road, because then everyone can see him. And he kind of struts along with slow steps, and he hangs his wings down low so he looks bigger, and he faces the females, and his tail, he fans it out behind him and raises it up. And kind of curious, it kind of bobs it side to side as it's taking its steps. I think it's just to attract attention to himself. And also, they don't make a lot of sounds, but they do a fluttering flight. So they'll fly straight up from that display place up into a tree. They'll sort of sit on a branch for a few minutes, look around, puff up a bit more, then they'll come back down and strut some more and fly up to a tree. And this fluttering sound carries for quite a bit through the forest, and so that attracts others to come see what's going on. So spruce grouse are interesting in that they have, just above the eye, called a supercilium comb. It's the same fleshy material that a rooster's comb would be made of, but they have just a little bit above the eyes, and those are bright red, and they really show up when you get close. And you can get really close sometimes to a spruce grouse because they're not really fearful. I mean, if you're tromping through the woods making a lot of noise, they'll fly away. But if you're slow and careful, you can sneak up on one of these. In fact, this picture here was taken with my cell phone. I was about 3 feet away from it. And here we are taking selfies with the spruce grouse because you're just sitting on the branch and didn't seem to care that we were here. But historically, that's been very important because loggers in the woods that have gotten lost, or trappers, maybe they've had a misfortune and they lost their gun or their gun jammed. Spruce grouse can be caught by hand because they're potentially so tame you can get close enough to catch them. And some woodsmen have saved their lives by catching and eating spruce grouse. Now, they're kind of a chicken-like bird, and they only weigh about a pound, so there's not a whole lot of meat in a spruce grouse. But when you're desperate, they have saved some lives. So what's the lesson we can learn from the spruce grouse? Well, their interesting camouflage and their way of living in the deep forest and surviving well reminds us that so many things we see in God's creation are suited for exactly what they need to deal with. And that gives me encouragement that, God has a plan for me, and that He is looking out for me and leading me, and I'm just glad that He's my leader. Thanks very much for listening. See you next time. Bye.